Rain hammered the motel sign as neon stuttered and smeared the night. Mara Bennett said, dispatch logged a scream at 012. The door hung ajar like a broken jaw. Jonah Reyes said, no forced entry, just fear. Inside, a blood message crawled across the wall, thick and wet. Mara Bennett, said Lily Parker, if you're in here, answer me. A phone buzzed beneath the bed, an insect with a heartbeat. Jonah Reyes said, don't touch the wall yet. The room smelled of iron and cheap citrus cleaner. Mara Bennett said someone staged panic, then lost control. The buzzing stopped, and the silence pressed like a hand on a mouth. The phone log blinked with a single missed call marked unknown. Mara Bennett said, he wanted her to see that wall. Jonah Reyes said, or wanted us to. The receipt showed a time stamp before the scream. Mara Bennett said, he checked in under a false name. The chain told a different story, torn inward. Jonah Reyes said, she let him in first. The bathroom steam felt staged, like a cheap alibi. Mara Bennett said Lily Parker didn't plan to leave. Outside the rain slowed, and the neon settled into a steady, watchful pulse. A manager slid into the doorway, eyes shining with nerves. Trent Holloway said, no cameras on the second floor. Mara Bennett said, then you remember faces. He stared at the blood and swallowed hard. Jonah Reyes said, who rented the room? Trent Holloway said, cash, dark cap, sunglasses at night. Mara Bennett said, confidence hides in costume. She traced the smeared letters with distance, mapping pressure. Jonah Reyes said, he wrote fast, then listened. The motel hummed like a bad memory that refused to fade. Captain Doris Hale arrived with the storm's last growl in her wake. Doris Hale said, media circling, keep it tight. Mara Bennett said the message was meant for Lily. Jonah Reyes said, or for you. Doris Hale said, chain torn inward suggests trust then force. The word trust snagged in the air. Mara Bennett said, he rehearsed this room. Jonah Reyes said, he missed something. Doris Hale said, find it before he does. The room seemed to tilt as the case found its cruel balance. Mara lifted the motel Bible and a crisp corner snapped free. Mara Bennett said, page knife, cut. A hotel receipt stub slid out with a scribbled time. Jonah Reyes said, he waited exactly 7 minutes. Doris Hale said, precision is a tell. The air conditioner coughed dust, and the blood on the wall dulled. Mara Bennett said, he wanted Lily to read this first. Jonah Reyes said, he wanted us to read it last. The sequence locked like tumblers, hinting at a door none of them wanted to open. The rain eased into a mist as dawn crept over the city. Mara Bennett said, she left behind too many echoes. At her desk, a photo of Lily Parker smiled faintly, untouched by the violence. Jonah Reyes said, the victim's last calls are to a blocked number. The sound of static played from the recorder, like someone breathing too close to the line. Mara Bennett said, this isn't random, Jonah. The case files spread across the table, felt like a funeral laid out in paper. Jonah Reyes said, someone wanted her erased but remembered. Mara thumbed through Lily's diary, its edges worn and ink blurred by tears. Mara Bennett said, she wrote of someone watching her, someone she feared but never named. Jonah Reyes said, an informant hinted at a man in the shadows, always near the motel. Mara Bennett said, he wanted her isolated, cornered, dependent. The words on the page trembled as if alive. Jonah Reyes said, whoever he is, she trusted him before she feared him. The diary closed with a final unfinished sentence, he knows. Lily's mother sat in the interview room, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights. Clara Parker said, she told me someone followed her from work. Mara Bennett said, did she say who? Clara Parker said, no, but she stopped locking her window, said it didn't matter anymore. Jonah Reyes said, that's surrender, not neglect. Clara Parker said, she wanted me safe, not her. Mara Bennett said, then the message on that wall was never just hers. The silence carried weight heavier than words, a grief too sharp to dull. Back at the crime board, Mara pinned Lily's photo beside a timeline of receipts and surveillance stills. Jonah Reyes said, each thread loops back to the motel. Mara Bennett said, he rehearsed that room like a stage. Doris Hale entered, saying, press is digging for the girl's past. Keep them away from her family. Mara Bennett said, her past isn't the story, her silence is. Jonah Reyes said, and his shadow fills it. The board glowed under fluorescent light, a map of obsession stitched in red string. Night settled again, but Mara lingered in her office. A voice recorder played Lily's laughter, captured weeks before. Mara Bennett said, she deserved more than to be a message on a wall. Jonah Reyes said, the man who took her knew that. The laughter cut into static, then silence. Mara Bennett said, he left us the silence as proof. The window reflected her weary eyes, framed by neon outside. Jonah Reyes said, we'll make him answer, Mara. The case no longer felt like duty but like blood carved into her own story. The rain returned in sheets, hammering the pavement as Mara Bennett stepped into the dimly lit alley behind the motel. Her boots splashed through puddles, each ripple reflecting the crimson neon from a liquor store sign across the street. Jonah Reyes said, the cameras don't cover this stretch. Whoever planned this knew the blind spots. Mara Bennett said, which means he's been here before. The shadows clung to the brick walls, thick with graffiti and mildew. A stray cat darted past a dumpster, startled by the intrusion. Jonah Reyes crouched, gloved fingers brushing over a fresh cigarette butt crushed into the gravel. Jonah Reyes said, menthol, same as the pack we found in the room. Mara Bennett said, then he lingers. He wants us close but never too close. The storm howled down the narrow passage carrying the faint scent of gasoline, a hint that danger wasn't just remembered here, it still lived here. The morgue was cold, metallic, and unforgiving. Lily Parker's body lay beneath a sheet, her face pale, lips blue from the absence of life. Mara Bennett said, she was 23. Jonah, too young to be carved into a message. The coroner, Dr. Alan Keene, adjusted his glasses. Dr. Keene said, no signs of struggle beyond the bruises on her wrists. Whoever did this subdued her quickly. Jonah Reyes said, controlled, efficient, almost rehearsed. Mara Bennett's gaze lingered on the faint ink smudged on Lily's fingertips, like she had tried to write before the end. Mara Bennett said, she wanted someone to know. Jonah Reyes said, or he wanted us to think she did. The hum of fluorescent lights felt heavier than silence, as though even the building itself mourned. The precinct's evidence room buzzed with tension as Mara and Jonah laid out the photographs. Each image was a puzzle piece dipped in shadows. Mara Bennett said, every lead circles back to the motel. But the motel was just a stage. Jonah Reyes said, and the blood message was his script. A series of receipts from gas stations and diners lined the corkboard, each timestamp meticulously connected with red string. Mara Bennett said, he wants us to follow. He's choreographing this. Jonah Reyes said, which means there's more waiting ahead. Doris Hale entered, her presence heavy with authority. Doris Hale said, the press got wind of the motel scene. Keep your mouth shut until we know what's true. Mara Bennett said, what's true is she trusted him, and that trust killed her. The silence tightened into something heavier than the room's stale air. The informant sat hunched in a corner booth of a rundown diner, eyes darting toward every sound of the door. Marcus Vale said, I saw him, but I shouldn't be here. Mara Bennett slid into the booth, her trench coat dripping rainwater onto cracked vinyl. Mara Bennett said, then tell me why you came anyway. Marcus Vale said, because I can't sleep knowing what he's planning. Jonah Reyes leaned forward, lowering his voice. Jonah Reyes said, describe him. Marcus Vale swallowed hard, trembling hands clasping his coffee cup. Marcus Vale said, Late 30s, tall, always in a cap, voice calm like he wasn't human. Mara Bennett said, "And what connects him to Lily Parker?" Marcus Vale whispered, "She was never his first. She won't be his last." The diner clock ticked louder, a rhythm that sounded too much like a countdown. That night, Mara returned to her apartment, the case haunting her like a phantom. The walls felt too thin, the silence too sharp. She poured whiskey into a glass and stared at the photographs scattered on her table. Mara Bennett said, "He knows we're chasing him, and he wants us to feel it." The rain drummed against the window, neon streaking the glass in fractured colors. Jonah Reyes called, his voice urgent through the receiver. Jonah Reyes said, "Another message just came in. It's worse this time." Mara Bennett said, "How bad?" Jonah Reyes said, "He's not writing on walls anymore. He's writing to you." Her breath caught, the glass trembling in her hand. Outside, thunder cracked like a gunshot, and the city seemed to listen. The interrogation room was silent, except for the hum of the overhead light. Mara Bennett said, "You were there, Trent. Admit it." Trent Holloway trembled, his hands clutching the edge of the table as if it might anchor him. Jonah Reyes said, "Your story about sunglasses at night doesn't hold. You slipped when you said he looked at you." Trent Holloway said, "I only meant." His voice cracked, betraying fear. Mara Bennett leaned closer, eyes sharp. Mara Bennett said, "He wasn't looking at him, he was looking at you." The weight of realization dropped like a hammer, and Trent's silence screamed louder than any denial. Mara spread new evidence across the table. A motel keycard, smeared with a faint fingerprint. Mara Bennett said, "This isn't the killer's print, it's yours, Trent." Trent Holloway's breath stuttered, his shoulders sagging as though gravity betrayed him. Jonah Reyes said, "You rented that room, not some faceless stranger." Doris Hale said, "You inserted yourself into the story and nearly pulled it off." Trent Holloway said, "I didn't kill her, I just let him in." Mara Bennett said, "That's the deadliest mistake, you gave him the stage." Jonah Reyes said, "Which makes you both witness and accomplice." The truth burned in the stale air. They played the hidden voicemail recovered from Lily's phone. Lily Parker's trembling voice echoed, "Trent, you said I could trust you. Why did you bring him here?" Mara Bennett closed her eyes, the sound piercing like glass. Jonah Reyes said, "She named you before the end." Trent Holloway said, "I thought he just wanted to scare her. He promised she wouldn't be hurt." Doris Hale said, "You don't make deals with predators." Mara Bennett said, "Every word of hers is a nail in your coffin." The tape ended in a muffled scream, leaving the room fractured with grief and fury. The board snapped into focus as Mara rearranged photos. Trent's work schedule overlapped every missing hour. Mara Bennett said, "He was always nearby, always covering tracks." Jonah Reyes said, "But never leading, someone else held the leash." Doris Hale said, "So who was the puppet master?" Mara Bennett said, "The man Trent let in isn't nameless. He knew Lily, and she trusted him once." Jonah Reyes said, "Then the killer isn't a shadow. He's someone from her past." The photos stared back like specters, whispering a name yet unspoken. The final reveal came with the DNA report. Lily Parker's blood matched fibers from Trent's jacket. Mara Bennett said, "You didn't just open the door. You were part of it." Trent Holloway shook violently, whispering, "I tried to stop him, but he said she had to die." Jonah Reyes said, "Who is he, Trent? Give us his name." Trent Holloway said, "He's not who you think. He's one of you." Doris Hale's face drained as the words cut through the silence. Mara Bennett said, "Then the killer walks in our ranks." The truth turned the precinct into a hall of betrayal. The night pressed heavy as Mara Bennett stepped into the abandoned warehouse, the air thick with rust, oil, and dread. Her flashlight cut through dust motes, landing on a chair bolted to the floor, ropes dangling. Mara Bennett said, "He staged his theater here." Jonah Reyes followed, gun drawn, his breathing sharp with anticipation. Jonah Reyes said. Every sign points to him waiting for us. The floor echoed with hollow metallic clangs, each footstep amplifying the silence. Doris Hale entered behind them, her voice low and steely. Doris Hale said, "Careful, he wants the confrontation." Mara Bennett ran her hand across the rope, frayed but still warm, a chilling suggestion someone had sat there not long ago. Her eyes locked on the wall, where new words smeared in blood read, "You're late." Mara Bennett whispered, "He's been here tonight." The truth stung like ice in her veins. Jonah Reyes muttered, "Then he's close enough to hear us now." The air grew thicker, a silence weighted with imminent violence. The sound of chains rattled in the distance, echoing off steel walls. Mara Bennett froze, the light catching on a figure moving in the shadows. She raised her gun, heart pounding. Mara Bennett said, "Show yourself." A slow, deliberate laugh seeped from the darkness, mocking and calm. The informant stepped forward, hands spread like an actor taking the stage. Adrian Cole said, "You came for answers, but all you'll get is the ending I wrote for you." His eyes glimmered with manic confidence, a twisted performance for an unwilling audience. Jonah Reyes said, "You used her as bait." Adrian Cole smirked, his voice dripping with disdain. Adrian Cole said, "Lily was already broken. I just gave her story a final chapter." Doris Hale stepped forward, fury cutting her composure. Doris Hale said, "You destroyed lives for your game." Adrian tilted his head, mocking. Adrian Cole said, "No, Captain, I revealed the truth about who you trust. Look at Reyes, don't you still doubt him?" The accusation tore through the room like a blade, planting poison in their fragile unity. Adrian paced the floor, his footsteps echoing like a conductor guiding a symphony of tension. Adrian Cole said, "You hunt monsters, Mara, but you never notice the one standing beside you." He gestured at Jonah with venom. Jonah Reyes said, "He's lying, he planted everything." Mara Bennett's grip tightened, sweat dampening her gloves. Mara Bennett said, "Then why does every clue trace back to you?" Adrian smirked, his tone chillingly calm. Adrian Cole said, "Because I wanted it that way. I wanted you chasing my shadow until you doubted every friend you had." Doris Hale snapped, her voice harsh. Doris Hale said, "Why her? Why Lily?" Adrian's face hardened for the first time, anger flashing. Adrian Cole said, "Because she mattered to Mara, and I needed to watch her break." His words echoed like a curse, slicing into Mara's chest. Her heart thundered, fury clashing with fear. Mara Bennett whispered, "This ends tonight." Adrian tilted his head, grinning with anticipation. Adrian Cole said, "That's the point." Suddenly, Adrian lunged toward the shadows, pulling a hidden blade from his sleeve. Mara fired, the shot cracking like thunder, sparks bursting off steel as the bullet ricocheted. Adrian vanished deeper into the warehouse, his laughter trailing like smoke. Jonah Reyes shouted, "He's driving us into his maze." Mara Bennett pushed forward, rage guiding her steps. Mara Bennett said, "We end this here." Doris Hale barked orders with iron authority. Doris Hale said, "Fan out, but don't lose sight of each other." The warehouse exploded with noise, chains rattling, footsteps sprinting, metal slamming shut. Adrian's voice carried from every corner. Adrian Cole said, "I wrote this stage for you. Every door you open brings you closer to your own ending." Mara's pulse pounded, her flashlight sweeping the shadows, every flicker revealing nothing but her own reflection in broken steel. The chase ended in the upper catwalk, high above the warehouse floor. Adrian stood near the edge, the blade glinting under fractured moonlight through shattered skylights. Adrian Cole said, "You'll never win, Mara. Even if you kill me, I've already broken you." Mara Bennett stepped closer, her gun steady but her chest heaving. Mara Bennett said, "You don't get to write my ending." Jonah Reyes flanked from the side, his weapon drawn, eyes burning with resolve. Jonah Reyes said, "This is where your story ends." Adrian laughed, his voice manic and cracked. Adrian Cole said, "Heroes don't end stories, villains do." He lunged forward, blade raised, but Mara fired, one shot tearing through the night. Adrian staggered, his smirk dissolving into shock. His body crashed through the railing, falling into the darkness below. The silence after the impact was deafening, broken only by Mara's shallow breath. Doris Hale called up from below, her voice rough. Doris Hale said, "It's done." Mara Bennett lowered her gun, whispering, "No, it's only begun." The warehouse echoed with the dying storm, as officers swarmed in, their radios crackling with relief and urgency. Mara Bennett stood over Daniel Cross' limp body, her pistol lowering with the weight of finality. Jonah Reyes said, "It's over." Mara Bennett whispered, "Not for Lily." The rain outside softened to a drizzle, as if the city itself exhaled. Doris Hale entered, her face carved in stone, saying, "Contain the scene and keep the press out." Mara Bennett said, "The case was never about headlines. It was about a girl who deserved better." Jonah Reyes said, "And a betrayal that almost split us apart." The silence left behind was the truest sound of justice, imperfect but final. Back at the precinct, the evidence board looked less like a puzzle and more like a memorial. Mara Bennett said, "Every string leads back to her." Jonah Reyes said, "Lily Parker was the center, not the periphery." Doris Hale said, "Then give her story weight. Don't let it vanish into case files." Mara's hands lingered on Lily's photo, her face smiling in defiance of her fate. Mara Bennett said, "She won't be forgotten, not while I breathe." Jonah Reyes added softly, "And not while truth still matters." The buzzing of fluorescent lights hummed like a vigil, steady and mournful, illuminating scars of a battle won with pieces lost. Later that night, Mara sat in her office alone, rain still whispering against the glass. A recorder played Lily's laughter again, fragile but eternal. Mara Bennett whispered, "I hope you know we found him." She closed her eyes, letting the sound linger like a blessing. Jonah Reyes entered quietly, his voice gentle. Jonah Reyes said, "She's free now, Mara." Mara Bennett said, "But her ghost lives here, in every case we couldn't solve, every voice silenced." Jonah Reyes said, "Then we fight for the ones who can't." For the first time in days, Mara let her guard fall, and her eyes burned, not with anger but with grief that finally had a place to rest. The next morning, Clara Parker arrived at the precinct, her steps slow but steady. Mara Bennett met her with Lily's diary, carefully returned. Clara Parker said, "Did she suffer?" Mara Bennett said, "She was strong until the end, and now she's at peace." Clara's eyes filled, but her voice remained firm. Clara Parker said, "Then her strength must carry me now." Jonah Reyes added, "She won't be remembered for her fear, but for the fight her story sparked." Clara held the diary against her chest as if holding her daughter again. For Mara, it felt like the first moment of closure, a wound still raw but beginning to scar. That evening, the city exhaled, as though it too had endured the storm. Mara and Jonah stood outside the precinct, rain-washed streets glistening under amber street lamps. Jonah Reyes said, "We closed the case, but the scars remain." Mara Bennett said, "Scars are proof we survived." Doris Hale approached, her voice steady. Doris Hale said, "The city will never know how close it came to breaking." Mara Bennett replied, "That's the way it should be. We bear the weight so others don't have to." The three of them stood together in silence, the night no longer haunted but still heavy. The case was closed, but the echoes would never fade. The precinct bustled with new cases, but Mara felt detached, watching the chaos through a veil of exhaustion. Mara Bennett thought, "Cases keep coming, but some never leave you." Jonah Reyes passed, his nod heavy with recognition of shared scars. Mara touched the blank evidence board, her fingers lingering over faint outlines where Lily's photo once hung. Mara whispered, "You're still here." Jonah Reyes said, "She always will be." The sound of typewriters, phones and chatter faded, drowned by the memory of Lily's laughter that refused to vanish. Daniel Cross was led into the courthouse, his arrogance stripped away with every click of his cuffs. Reporters shouted, Cameras flashed like a storm. Mara Bennett said, "Justice crawls, but it leaves a deeper scar." Jonah Reyes said, "His name will rot in headlines, but Lily's name will live in us." Daniel sneered briefly, then lowered his head, knowing the fight was over. Mara whispered, "This isn't your story anymore." The courthouse doors closed like a tomb, sealing him away from the world he tried to control. At dusk, Mara returned to the riverbank, the warehouse looming dark against the horizon. The water shimmered with orange reflections as the day died. Mara Bennett whispered, "He can't touch you anymore, Lily." Jonah Reyes dropped a pebble into the current. Jonah said, "Let the river carry the rest." Mara nodded, eyes fixed on ripples spreading wide, as if scattering Lily's voice into the world. The river swallowed the silence and replaced it with motion, eternal and unbroken, a current stronger than memory. Clara Parker opened the door with red eyes but steadier hands. Clara Parker said, "He'll never see the sky as a free man again." Mara Bennett said, "But freedom was never his." Clara whispered, "You gave her voice back." Mara lowered her eyes, humbled. "Mara," said her voice, "carried me when I was falling." Clara clasped Mara's hand, a bond carved by loss. Silence stretched between them, but it no longer felt empty. Grief had bent but not broken them. For the first time, Clara's tears carried both sorrow and peace. Night fell soft over the cemetery. Mara knelt at Lily's grave, a candle flickering in her hand. Mara whispered, "Your story will not vanish with the dog." She set the candle down, its glow defiant against the cold earth. Jonah Reyes stood a distance away, silent, respecting her solitude. Mara said, "I'll carry you with me. Every case, every breath." The flame burned steady as stars blinked above, fragile yet enduring. The screen faded to black, leaving only the glow of the candle, a heartbeat of memory burning against the endless night.